you do is dribble.
I have to dribble. If I give it to you, you just shoot. You're a chucker.
Oh, chucker.
That's right. Every time you get the ball, you shoot.
I can't believe you called me a chucker. No way I'm a chucker. I do not chuck. Never chuck. Never have chuck, never will chuck. No chuck.
You chuck?
Kramer, am I a chucker?
Oh, you're a chucker.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Helmet Sunday Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. Today, we're going to be talking about the Idaho Falls Chukars, one of the most fun brands, one of the most fun social media presences out there on the Twitterscape in particular. I'm talking right now to Chris Hall, who is the assistant general manager with the team. Chris, thanks for being here.
No, it's truly an honor, Paul.
I'm not sure if that's true, but I appreciate you saying that. Chris, can you just right off the bat here? I mean, what I like to talk about on this podcast is what minor league teams mean to their local community and in particular the brands that they have. So could you just explain sort of what a Chukar is and why a baseball team in Idaho Falls, Idaho would have that name?
Yeah, a Chukar is a very small game bird here throughout Southeast Idaho. And so, when they were, from what I understand, when my boss, Kevin Green, was working to rename the team because they were tired of, I think they were early 90s, they were the Gems, and then they became a Braves affiliate, so they switched to the Idaho Falls Braves, and then late 90s, they became a Padres affiliate, so they switched to the Padres, and then they were going to switch in 2006 to the Royals, and I think they were just tired of making fans mad, having to always buy new merchandise and stuff for a new team name. So I said, let's just create an identity that's uniquely ours. And the story I've been told is they were just, scrolling through animals native to Southeast Idaho and saw a Chukar and kind of liked the play on words, liked that, it's kind of a funny name. And anybody that has seen a Chukar, it's not an incredibly menacing animal or intimidating animal, but liked the idea of making a logo that tried to make a little Chukar as terrifying as possible.
Well, and so this logo that you have is created by Dan Simon, and he did create a kind of fierce looking bird. And in particular, he's winding up throwing a baseball because, of course, the double entendre with the name Chukar, not just the bird, but the act of chucking a baseball. So you do have this sort of fierce logo for this team that for this nickname that represents a bird that is maybe not that fierce. Do you ever get like birders who are like, wait a minute, Chukars would never have that menacing look on their face?
No, not really. We get every now and then through different states, I'll get a DM on Twitter that says, hey, we're a local Chukar hunting club here in northern Utah. Can you send us a fan pack or do anything like that? But no Chukar hunters that have criticized the name, thankfully.
So this is the curse of the social media manager for a minor league baseball team, is the constant presence of people asking for free stuff.
It's my favorite and least favorite thing in the world. I love one that they forget to edit out the other teams that they have just been copy and pasting this to. I love one that'll have in parentheses team name. I love people that say they love watching Chukars games on ESPN. Stuff those make my day, really, when I see them.
Chukars games on ESPN. I did stream some Chukars games last year, especially during the playoff run. I guess the Paddleheads ended up winning the Pioneer League Championship last year, but the Chukars were involved till late. Is that right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I made the drive to Missoula with my wife just to watch the team go down like 9-0 in the first inning or something like that. It was just a miserable time to be there, but fortunately, I sat next to some nice Paddlehead fans that weren't too mean about it, as mean as I would have been to them if it was the other way. So,
obviously the Pioneer League, for people who follow minor league baseball, the Pioneer League was one of the leagues that is now a Major League Baseball partner league, but the teams themselves are no longer affiliated with their major league clubs. Has that changed the nature of the rivalries between the teams, or the sort of, is it more competitive now that the teams are creating their own rosters? What's the difference now after, with a season under your belt as an unaffiliated partner league?
I think it has made it a little bit more competitive because these managers have access to making changes that they want to make. And the best players play every day. When we were a rookie level affiliated team, we'd have the Royals say, hey, the second baseman, I know he's struggling, he's hitting like 140 this year, but he needs to be starting twice a week. And so, as someone who manages the social media and is rooting for the team every day, that can be frustrating. And so that's been a really great change, but I think it's made it more competitive between teams on the field as well. As everybody's always trying to get better. A lot more close games, which makes tensions high. But between fans and stuff, the Missoula Idaho Falls rivalry has always been there, and the Ogden Idaho Falls rivalry is always there in the crowd and somehow on the field. Even when we were affiliated, it's clockwork, death taxes, and a fight on the field between Ogden and Idaho Falls every year.
This has become an absolute highlight of my sort of baseball fandom career. And I believe it was you personally, Chris, who reached out through the Idaho Falls Chukars Twitter account, inviting me to throw a first pitch if I made it to Idaho Falls. And I have to tell I built a road trip around that offer. I created so I hope you I want you to share this with everyone else in the Pioneer League. I created a road trip that I took with my children over basically 4.5 days to see 4 games in Montana and Idaho, because you reached out and said, hey, if you make it to Idaho Falls, you can throw a ceremonial first pitch. And sure enough, that became a highlight of my baseball fandom career, was getting on day 4 of the 4-day road trip, getting to Idaho Falls and getting to walk out there with, it was like me and a bunch of like little leaguers who were also throwing out some first pitches. So it was me and a bunch of 11-year-olds going out there with our ceremonial first pitch baseballs to throw to former major leaguer Billy Butler, which was just a total charge. But that was something that was created through this sort of social media interaction that we have. So first of all, thank you for that amazing experience. I want to isolate that moment and just say thank you for creating that experience for me as a fan.
No, it was great having you here. It's an offer I made to plenty of people that, you do a great job promoting the Pioneer League, and it's an offer I'd make for anybody that does that. So
I'd like to think that I was maybe one of like 2 or 3 people. I'd like to think maybe it was like me and Tom Hanks and Matt Damon got that offer, and then that's it. That's the
way your kids are going to tell the story forever.
Absolutely. And then you posted a photo of me throwing this first pitch, and I didn't have it well documented. And just recently you posted a photo of me throwing this first pitch, and you made a comment about my calves, which I also owe you like $5 for. So I appreciate it.
Incredibly shredded in that picture. I'm scrolling through, I'm looking for stuff that we can use on our pocket schedule, on our magnet schedule. It's just this boring task of just flipping through every picture our team photographer made. And then I'm like, oh, there's Paul. Damn, look at Paul's calves.
Well, that's a crack up. But obviously this speaks to your role as a social media manager here. The minor league baseball landscape is cluttered, right, at best, right? And it's why I do what I do, right? It's so much fun to sort of break down these sort of individual component parts of the minor league baseball landscape. You play in a state that doesn't necessarily have a lot of drive through traffic. I'm in the mountain time zone with you here, and even Colorado, which probably gets more tourism than Idaho, it feels pretty far away to my friends on the coasts, right? So you play in a a sort of smaller league in a state that doesn't get a ton of travel. And the other thing is, this logo that you have has been around since 2004, right? Like the Chukars have been around since 2004, which in minor league baseball is sort of an eternity. And it's not wacky, it's not outrageous, it's just one word, not 2, and it's an actual name of an actual bird and not some made up term for a chukar. And so with all of these things sort of in your back pocket, I wouldn't say working against you, but certainly part of the hand that you've been dealt. How do you take a team like the Chukars then and stand out in the social media landscape, which I think you have, right? I mean, I think you have. People know the Chukars because of your social media presence.
Yeah, I consider myself very online, especially on Twitter. We always joke in the office that I understand Twitter culture, and it's a completely different thing on Twitter than it is anywhere else in the world. And when I was kind of handed the reins to the Chukars social media, I kind of looked at the landscape, not only of the Pioneer League, but of minor league baseball. And I said, what I really wanted to be was just the Pioneer League wrestling heel. I want to be the one that is just firing up every team. And there's teams that don't particularly, team ownerships that don't particularly like that. I've gotten on multiple occasions a text message that says, hey, can you pull that down? I don't like that you're making fun of our team.
Oh, yeah.
And I've explained to people, really in my heart of heart, what I hope happens is that some fan in Missoula says, I hate the Chukars. I hate them. I hate that they put our logo on a gravestone. I hate
Right.
that they,
Yeah.
every time we lose a game, they're celebrating whether they won or lost. So that when we go to the Chukars, I hope that people are piling into that stadium in Missoula because they want to boo us, because they don't like me, they don't like our players. And if that happens, I'm happy. I mean, honestly, I love the Pioneer League. It's not something I wasn't a Pioneer League fan. I wasn't familiar with it before I started working here.
Yeah.
And I think it's the most fun place in the world to work. And so I just found my niche of, I don't think there's a lot of people out here that are just trash talking everyone that will,
Right.
I write in first person, like it's me out
Mhm,
there. And if
mhm.
someone says something that I don't like, I'll go on there and I'll say, I don't like this. I think you're dumb. And it works. I mean, the fan base has grown. I mean, from a business side, I mean, we do well on social media, merchandise grows. We have people like yourself that when we do well, promote it to a wider audience of people that, like you said, maybe don't know we exist because we haven't done a rebrand, or we're not, a wacky name that pops up on every TikTok or something like that.
Right.
So, I just kind of had to find my niche, and it's very, I guess, the podcast I'm on, it's by design, what I do on there. And, I'm not the most graphically inclined person. I use Snapchat that I'll go and I'll draw a Chukars logo on people's hats and stuff.
Right.
It's something that takes me 2 seconds, and I just have a lot of fun doing it. It's my favorite part of my job.
Well, and I'm sure you know that my avatar for a long time, I had a baseball who was wearing a helmet Sunday, just a photo, and you had put out, send me your Twitter avatar and we'll improve it. And you just put Idaho Falls Chukars logos on everybody's, avatar. And so
giant.
For a long time, I had a Chukars logo in my avatar, in part because I knew I was going to get to throw a first pitch there, but in part because it was this sort of fun thing that you guys did. And I'm a fan of Dan Simon's work. So that was my avatar until Dan Simon created a logo for my podcast. So
I didn't take that one too personally.
I have to say that some of my favorite fight that you pick through the Chukars account is with the Grand Junction Rockies and their logo that's meant to be a mesa but looks just like a Pizza Hut instead. When you pick on the Rockies for their generic logo and being named for a parent club that is not their parent club anymore is just that's my favorite thing. And I'm not going to ask you, Chris, to comment on that because I know that that's coming from the Idaho Falls Chukars, but that's some of your best trolling, I have to say.
Yeah, especially that's when the Rocky Mountain Vibes and I like to tag team on. The Vibes are owned by the same ownership group that owns the Chukars, and so there's a lot of working together that happens there that we'll fight between ourselves, but when it's time to gang up on Grand Junction, that's something that I think we really enjoy.
That's perfect. I love it. Well, so you mentioned the Vibes, and we're talking about the Grand Junction Rockies. And now, just about a half hour away from me, we have the Northern Colorado Owls with a Z coming. So the Pioneer League is sort of working, and that, by the way, is their official name in my head, is the Northern Colorado Owls with a Z. So,
here in the office, we just say owls.
Owls.
We go hard on the Z.
But so I'm looking forward to having the Pioneer League here locally. I mean, that's the local league here in Northern Colorado. So it's for me, it's starting to hit home even more. last year when we did our road trip with our kids, it took us 7 hours to get to Billings, and then we did Missoula, and then Great Falls, and then down to Idaho Falls, and then we went whitewater rafting on the way home in Wyoming. So it was a great trip. It was actually a great trip. So, and my daughter's actually looking at colleges right now. Today, in fact, she's in Spokane. You know, I was like, hey, that's only 3 hours from Missoula. We could go catch some Pioneer League baseball. So, but anyway, it's the Pioneer League, I think, has been really fun to follow, and for me to get to know, and I'm going to get to know it more closely, because the league was formerly affiliated. There are some sort of remnants of the affiliation with minor league baseball, one of which was you all participated in the Copa de la Diversión program, and I am wearing, as we talk right now, my lime green Madres dad hat. Can you tell me just sort of what the significance is of the Madres Copa brand?
Yeah, so first off, it was something that when we were approached by minor league baseball about joining Copa, we were excited to do it. Idaho Falls has a fairly substantial Hispanic population here, and that's something we really wanted to kind of take an offer to reach out to them. And then second was we wanted to really kind of push our comfort zones and do something that wasn't something we had seen in Copa before. We threw around your food ideas and your, folklore ideas. And then one thing we just kept coming back to was I don't think there's been a men's league team that has had a female mascot and a female logo before. And the more we kind of talked about it, it felt like something that was important to us to do. We wanted to be the first one. And we didn't know at the time that Colorado Springs, who are in our same ownership group, were also working on producing a female name and a female logo for their Copa brand. And then, we started thinking, okay, what can we do? And then we were only the Idaho Falls Padres for 4 years. We were the Idaho Falls Padres for 4 years. And it's something that we've had fans constantly come up to us and say, when are you going to do a Padres throwback night? When are you going to have Padres throwback gear? And so we just kind of started playing around with the idea of, well, what if as an homage to the Idaho Falls Padres, we became the Idaho Falls Madres for Copa? And we really liked it. We worked with MILB to help us design a logo that we were really happy with, kind of a Day of the Dead inspired logo. And then the cool thing that was always the plan with New Era that unfortunately the pandemic kind of ruined our chance to do it. It was going to be an homage to the Casper Ghost, and we were going to have the first glow-in-the-dark minor league baseball hat since the Casper Ghost went away. And unfortunately, that was a plan that went by the wayside with the pandemic.
Well, from following me on Twitter that I'm a huge fan of the Casper Ghosts there. So it's that I'd love to see, any homage out there to that. Yeah, it's a great cap. I ended up getting it. I got a t-shirt. The store, by the time I got to the store, it was, this is a good thing, not a bad thing. It was pretty well picked over by the time I got there. So I got myself a pennant, which is hanging under the Helmet Sunday collection out here. I got a 2019 Idaho Falls Chukars Pioneer League Championship t-shirt. And then of course I got right. And I got this Madres cap, which I wore when I threw the first pitch out there. So that was I sort of picked through what was left, and I was glad to come up with the lime green Madres hat. I'm still waiting. Every once in a while I'll hop back on your website and look for like a maroon dad hat with the the Chukars logo, the throwing the pitch there. So
I'm happy to say I think that give it a month and refresh the site, and I think it'll be on there.
Well, I have a sense too that you might tag a few of us in a post when that happens too. I have a sense we're going to know about that when it does finally happen. So
I'm not good at keeping secrets. No.
Well, why would you? It's not your job. Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. I'm very excited to get to see some Pioneer League ball this summer in person again for the second year in a row. Will you travel with the team? Will you be here in Northern Colorado?
We don't play the Northern Colorado Owls this year. It is the only team in the Pioneer League that we do not play at home or on the road. So
wow.
Unfortunately, I won't be making a trip to Northern Colorado this year. I think the only thing that I have scheduled with my wife to go see the Chukars on the road is going up to Glacier National Park and seeing the new team up there this year. I'm sure next year, if we're in Northern Colorado, I love taking a trip just to see every park at least once. And you'll just have to do me a favor and root against the paddlehead if you can't root for the Chukars.
That's I can help you out with that. Absolutely. That's, I can be bought easily, and you guys, you guys had me throw the first pitch. So you're my Pioneer League team here. So consider me bought. That Range Riders brand up in Glacier National Park there in Kalispell is that's another fun one. You guys are growing. And then you have your cross state rival with the Boise Hawks, who used to be in the Northwest League, and they're now part of the Pioneer League as well. And so the league is growing, and these rivalries are fun. And I loved my road trip, seeing the 4 teams last year. Oh, you know what? I was sounding like I was wrapping up, and I had one more question for you. I have to say, I am a huge, huge fan of the Pioneer League's method of determining, of breaking a tie after 9 innings with the home run contest. How's that been received with the fans?
Everyone that hasn't been a part of one, I think, hates it. And here in the community, we have people all the time. Oh, I hope I never see one. You guys are ruining baseball. And every single person that's been here when we've had one, and the good news is we've never lost one, so I'm sure that helps.
Yeah.
Leaves the ballpark, pulling us aside and saying, that was so much fun. That was amazing. And I've been a part of 18-inning Pioneer League games before. It's terrible. You're leaving the ballpark at 12:30 at night, and there were 6 people that decided to stay for it. This last year, I think the knockout round went great. We've worked out some kinks. I think it's going to be even faster, even better this year. Work a little smoother than it did last year, and we're really excited about showing it off this year.
Well, I hope I get to see one at an Owls with a Z game. I'm a huge fan of the Pioneer League and of what you're doing specifically with the Chukars. And I know that I'll get to another Chukars game. So I'll look forward to seeing you there if I don't get to see you in Colorado at a game.
Perfect.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you coming on with me.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm very pleased now to be joined by Henry Hunter, who is the Executive Vice President for the Pioneer League. And I had the pleasure of meeting Henry in person, sort of by accident, at a Great Falls Voyagers game last summer when I was on a road trip with my children, and Henry was on a road trip with his family. And for whatever reason, we just struck up a conversation, and it turns out that Henry is the Executive Vice President for the Pioneer League. And so that was a sort of fortuitous opportunity to bump into you. So Henry, thanks for all these months later hopping on the podcast.
My pleasure, Paul. Happy to be with you again.
The Pioneer League is just such a blast, right? Like it's so much fun. I had a great time on that road trip with my kids. I saw, let's see, in this order, we drove from Fort Collins to Billings, and then Billings to Missoula to Great Falls, and that's where I met you. And then after Great Falls, down to Idaho Falls, which was, so you met me about 24 hours before a seminal moment in my life, which was the first pitch that I got to throw at an Idaho Falls Chukars game. So I got to throw a ceremonial first pitch that they put together.
Did it bounce?
No, I got it there in the air, to Billy Butler catching. So that was really fun. You and I, we're both East Coasters originally. You grew up in Northern Florida. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I, of course, had no idea what a Chukar was when I got to Idaho Falls, or I guess before I learned about the team. As executive vice president, you visited all of the existing stadiums in the league. Did you know what a Chukar was before you got there?
Absolutely not. I had no idea. I asked Kevin Green, who was generous in saying it was basically a partridge. It's a fat little bird, I believe you called it once. It's been fun. I think a couple of other teams, I know the Rocky Mountain Vibes had a girl on their staff that was doing these little promotional raps, and there's a lot of things that rhyme with Chukar, so it's been fun.
We haven't discussed that yet on the podcast here. Let's make a list of words that that rhyme with Chukar. So it's obviously one of the fun brands. But you, in terms of the Pioneer League in general, obviously the league's gone through a lot of changes. It was an affiliated short season Class A league before the Major League Baseball Vogon Destructor fleet came through and reorganized minor league baseball. Now you all are a partner league, and you came on with the league right around the time that they switched to the partner league status.
Yep. And it's interesting. Some folks like to say that we've been relegated, and in my mind, we've been liberated. I think that being an independent partner league is a sweet spot. We still have a healthy relationship with MLB. We've put a couple dozen guys into MLB affiliated minor league systems, but at the same time, we've had the freedom to innovate. And we've taken that and run with it in lots of fun and creative ways at the team and league level.
Well, and so one of these innovations, and I think that's absolutely true, right? Like that the independent leagues or the partner leagues, the ones that are not affiliated certainly have a certain amount of freedom to do different things. One of the things that you all have done is what you call the knockout round. And I'm dying to see a knockout round game here because, I've never seen anything like it. It's a really, I think, interesting way to end a baseball game, but it's essentially a home run hitting contest that has the baseball purists sort of up in arms. I love it. I didn't get to see a knockout round on my road trip. I'm hoping that this coming summer that I'll get to see a knockout round at a Northern Colorado Owls game because they're right around the corner from me. But can you talk about the effect that the knockout round has had on the league?
Absolutely. It was mostly positive reactions. There were baseball purists and journalists like yourselves who didn't like it initially, and then we had one. And all of the players loved it. All of the managers loved it. It became a really exciting way to end a game. And, in minor league baseball, the 10th, 11th, 12th innings aren't exactly the best business. The last call has already happened. People's children are already tired and ready to go to bed. You're burning out pitchers' arms. You're losing baseballs over the fence. So we said, how do we turn this from a loss to a big win? It was interesting. At one point, we were talking about, doing the regular cameras, and we ended up having different interns go down there with their handheld cell phones and be part of the kind of pile up after the walk-off. And it was really cool stuff. We decided to let the PA announcers turn on the music and go down there and make it a real home run derby type vibe. And we've gotten nothing but good feedback from it. So much so that you may have noticed that the MLB All-Star game this year will be a knockout round if it's ending a tie. So I think that, what do they say, imitation and flattery?
Absolutely. And now I'm going to be, I root for the National League because I'm a Phillies fan. I always root for the National League in the All-Star game. But even if the National League's ahead, I might have to root for a game to end in a tie so that I can see that knockout round. So that's.
And I'll tell you a little tweak we did too this year. Previously it was 5 swings, and so it was almost like a penalty shootout where it was best out of 5. Yeah. And we realized that each team was kind of getting their knockout king, as I've been calling them, and everybody had their kind of big hitter that became their go-to guy for knockout rounds. And we said, why stop these guys if they get hot? So this year it's going to be a 2-minute time period. You get 5 outs still, but if you hit 50 home runs, nobody's going to tell you to stop, wowing the crowd and showing off your bat. So we're excited about the little tweak that should open up a little more excitement at the end of the game.
Well, like I said, I'm going to try to get to as many Owls with a Z games as I can this year, and hope that I get to see one. Speaking of the Northern Colorado Owls with a Z, the Pioneer League has changed a little bit in recent years, not just to switch to the Partner League, but last year you added the Boise Hawks. They were formerly with the Northwest League. And then this year so the Orem Owls took a year off, and they're going to be playing right around the corner from me in Windsor, Colorado, as the Northern Colorado Owls with a Z. And then there's a brand new team in Kalispell, Montana called the Glacier Range Riders, who have sort of a cool National Park Service feeling about them. And I'm certainly going to do an episode on them at some point. But the league has grown from 8 teams to 10 teams now as a partner league. Obviously, as a partner league, things seem to be going okay. The league's doing well if it's growing like that.
Absolutely. Last year, despite COVID and all of the difficulties that came with having had a year off, we set an attendance record. We had a really good fan reaction to all of our innovations. We rebranded the league, as you saw with our new logo from the league. And like you said, we're growing, and we're not done growing. We got 2 really exciting, beautiful ballpark projects coming on that not only will be awesome for the fans in Fort Collins and Glacier and Kalispell, but they're also awesome for the stuff I'm working on, because it gives us a chance to enhance the technology in the ballparks, we're going to do some cool stuff with new camera angles and, stuff like that, having brand new, high-tech facilities will definitely be a cool asset.
Oh, well, I will certainly look forward to hearing more about that. That sounds very cool. And as officially a fan of the Pioneer League, I did notice when the league rebranded, the league has a new brand. It was created by North Carolina based design firm called Project 13. And, it's definitely a much more contemporary look than the old brand was. And it coincided with the league switching over to this partner league. So the new teams, the new brand, can you talk about what the sort of thinking was in rebranding the official logo of the league?
Yeah. So the new brand is supposed to be younger, it's supposed to be cooler, it's supposed to speak to the history of the league with sort of a traditional P, but the the overall vibe is modern, it's tech first, it looks great in an Instagram or a Facebook profile. And we're also adding a new logo to the knockout round and branding that as its own thing. That was also done by Richard Norris and Project 13, whose work we love, obviously.
Yeah.
And similarly, we've done a full digital transformation of all of our fan-facing assets. So we're going to redo the websites. We have redone the websites, and we're launching an app, which we'll talk about more soon. But yeah, the idea was that we wanted to modernize the league, modernize the way we speak to our fans, modernize the way we present our games, and the logo represents all of it.
Awesome. Well, and we're going to talk about the league sort of as, over the course of this podcast, as I feature Pioneer League teams. You've agreed to come on. I appreciate that. We'll get to have these conversations going forward. Yeah. So like you said, next time I have you on, I'm covering the Missoula Paddleheads, and I know that there's some innovations in the league, and we'll talk about that next time. So, Henry, the Pioneer League and the Idaho Falls Chukars are easily discoverable online, but where can people follow you online?
I am on Instagram with a burgeoning account, pbl.bp, that I am excited to have some interns help me flesh out. And of course, the league itself is on Facebook, Instagram. We have a TikTok now because, like I said, we're taking on younger minds and using their great ideas to reach a younger audience. So we're everywhere. We're on all social media platforms, but you can also find us on the pblnetwork.com, which we've completely revamped. And I'll tease that more later, but it's going to be unrecognizable to the streaming platform we had last year, both in terms of the production, the original content, the accessibility of it. And we're really excited about some cool developments in that space.
Awesome. Well, I definitely look forward to talking to you more about that. And Henry, thanks for coming on this first time, and we'll talk to you again soon.
My pleasure, Paul. Looking forward to seeing you regularly.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm really very pleased right now to be talking to a very important person in Arkansas State Parks. Shea Lewis is the director of Arkansas State Parks. And Shea and I go way back. Shea is a Yankee fan. Shea has been involved with the association that I work for many, many years. One of the first people I met here in my 20-year career here at this association. But more importantly, we're fellow baseball fans. And Shea is a Yankees fan, taunted me mercilessly after his Yankees beat my Phillies in the 2009 World Series. And now it's been, like a decade for either of us since we've, played meaningful October baseball. Although the Phillies haven't made the playoffs at all in a decade. First of all, Shea, thank you for being here.
Sure. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And the other thing, thank you for, is the time that Cliff Lee, who was an Arkansas native, visited one of your state parks, and you knew that was coming, and you bought a powder blue retro style Phillies t-shirt, and you had Cliff Lee sign that for me. I still have it on my shelf at my house here, proudly displayed, Cliff Lee's autograph, representative of the last time the Phillies were relevant in Major League Baseball. So
yeah, that's right. And yeah, Cliff Lee had a major league career that was fantastic and impacted multiple teams. We even got to see him pitch. You remember at Wrigley Field?
We did.
He pitched for us during that game or game that we attended. And so, which is pretty cool. He's from Arkansas originally, from Benton, and just a local sports celebrity.
Yeah, that was great, right? And he pitched at the first game that I ever saw in Wrigley was with you when our families went on a trip together to Wrigley, and we had to find a way to sneak away to a ball game there. And the Phillies were playing, and I remember there was a sign outside saying, Harry Carey's bar there saying something about the champs are here, but we want to win, or I was like, the Phillies are champs, like amazing. They did win that game, and we also got to see Ryan Howard hit a monstrous opposite field home run. I think they won 6-1 or 6-3.
You've got better memory than me on that. So
Well, these things, tend to stick in my memory here. So it's but I remember that was the day after a fan in center field dumped a beer on Shane Victorino's head while he was trying to catch a fly ball.
that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So anyhow, but we're not here to talk about the Phillies or the Cubs or your Yankees. We're here to talk about the Idaho Falls Chukars. And the reason you're the perfect person to have on this podcast right now, not only are you the director of Arkansas State Parks, but you in your career worked at Idaho State Parks, and also you're a birder. And I didn't know what a birder was until I started this day job of mine that I've had for 20 years. But I remember at one of the first conferences that we were at together, you invited me to go birding. And I was just like, that sounds interesting. What's that? And you said, well, we get up at 4 a.m. and we go out in the dark and the cold and we like bundle up and sit in a field with binoculars and we check birds off our list when we see them. And I was like, no, that sounds terrible. But I'll see you at breakfast like 5 hours later. So I appreciated the invitation. I appreciate that we became friends in spite of the fact that birding was not really my thing. But, birding and baseball, sort of, the whole life list aspect of birding, I think relates to baseball fandom.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Birding is I consider it a sport. It is a sport that because there is scorekeeping to it. And so that's an important aspect of it for me is that keeping up with the number of birds that you see, whether that's in different states or across the United States, different countries, or wherever you travel, you can enjoy the birds that are there. And there is sort of friendly competition amongst other birders about what they've seen and what they do. But in the sports world, of course, you see, famous birds as mascots and for me as a birder, if I don't have a specific team that I'm pulling for, then I default to the bird name teams that are playing. And so if let's say the Eagles were in the Super Bowl,
yeah,
not necessarily a team I would necessarily pull for, but if they're there, I would pull for them because they're the Eagles, especially if they were playing someone like the Patriots. I don't even know if that could happen because of the two divisions, but
well, not only can it happen, but it did happen in Super Bowl 52 when Nick Foles heroically defeated the evil Tom Brady.
Okay, so that's my default is I always pull for the birds, and then I get even more specific if there's generic bird names versus a bird that's more accurate or specific to that, then I would definitely pull for those. So a team like the Idaho Falls Chukars, I would definitely pull for them because they have a very specific species that they are promoting as their mascot.
Well, so tell me about it. As a bird expert, what's a chukar?
So a chukar, the way I would describe it is as a tiny turkey. They are short, husky type bird. If you could imagine like a robin a robin's a pretty common bird that you can see throughout the United States. Everybody knows what a robin is, but imagine one that is kind of on the huskier side of things, and is how I would describe the size and shape of a chukar. So one that's had a really, really, really expansive diet of buffets for some amount of time, and so it's how I would describe a chukar. They're primarily on the ground. They kind of fall in the family of birds, such as turkeys, pheasants, quail, partridges, in that group. Primarily eat seeds, and found specific to kind of the Rockies into the northwest part of the United States. So it's not a bird that you'll see elsewhere throughout the United States.
It's I appreciate the terminology you're using here. You're not trying to body shame the chukar for being essentially like a fat little bird here, right? But
no.
What position do you think a chukar would play on the ball field?
Well, I mean, immediately you have to, the chukar name comes from the call that it makes. So that's where it originates from. It's kind of you're trying to get me to make a replica of the call here. I can see where this is going.
I can wait all day, Shea.
Kind of something like that is the chukar. It's kind of more like a chukar, kind of like that. call is where its name comes from. So, but you couldn't talk about baseball and you couldn't talk about a mascot bird without thinking a chucker is something that is thrown, or someone who throws, who chucks the ball. And so, it kind of makes sense that, and, if you look at some of the logos, you see that that's kind of depicted in some of the logos is, the bird kind of with the feathers and the wing throwing the ball.
Absolutely. So you think he's going to be a pitcher?
I would say a pitcher for sure.
Okay.
Or maybe that left or right fielder too is another option.
Okay.
Throwing into home from left or right field. So
okay, but a husky pitcher like sort of Joe Blanton style.
Joe Blanton, or even the early days of CC Sabathia. So,
right. Or like a Fernando Valenzuela, maybe like a way back. Okay, so the husky, a pitcher of the husky variety.
Exactly. So, the other thing about the chuckers too, I think that's just kind of unique and sort of good, or a good connection to Idaho, is the elevation. Typically you don't find these birds unless they're like, 3,500 foot above sea level or 4,000 feet, kind of higher elevation. But they're also very evasive. They're not always easy to find. When you find them, they're often in large groups. So you'll see large, when you talk about quails, you say they're in a covey. I'm not sure if that applies to chuckers in exact the same way, but you see a large covey of them in groups. But what's really amazing is if you try to pursue them for a photo or something like that, they're highly evasive and they can run away and scatter very quickly and disappear into the environment. And they tend to go uphill. So if you're chasing chuckers, you have to remember that is like if you're in the high country, high desert, scrub, timber, sagebrush, things like that, is that if you're trying to follow them and get a better look at them, they're going to go up. That tends to be their tendency.
All right. Well, so the last question I have for you about this is the other Idaho team in the Pioneer League is the Boise Hawks. From a purely mascot perspective, I think I know where this answer is going to go, but you're the expert, so I want to ask you here. If it's Hawks versus Chukars, who are you going with?
The Hawks there are lots of varieties of Hawks out there. So I'd have to pull for the Chukars just because they're so bird specific. When I lived and worked in Idaho, we lived not too awfully far from Idaho Falls, and drove through there many times, visited the town, and especially on our way to Yellowstone and in that part of the state. So I would definitely pull for them. And, there's some other mascots out there like the Seahawks, which is kind of more of a generic type title as well. So I tend to pull for the more specific ones. Plus, I just like their logo as well. So
one of the things I didn't mention in the intro is that you have co-authored a book on graphic design in the field of heritage interpretation, and so good design when you see it. So obviously, this is a great logo created by a talented designer. So.
Yes, and I'm glad you even brought this to my attention. I was unaware of this team and the logo, so I'm definitely going to be ordering some gear very soon to support that team and the bird species mascots out there. So
you're doing God's work here, Shea. That's great news. I should tell you, I threw out a first pitch at an Idaho Falls Chukars game last summer on a road trip with the kids. So it's my
Very
one
nice.
and only first pitch experience ever. So that's I support you supporting this team, and I'm glad to have brought them to your attention here. So, Shea, where can people find you and or Arkansas State Parks online?
Sure. You can visit our website at any time, arkansasstateparks.com. You can always reach out to me through email at shay.lewis@arkansas.gov at any point in time. So, but I appreciate being part of this discussion.
Well, I can't wait to catch up with you in Little Rock at a Travelers game, and we'll record another episode there, but we'll do it in person over some ice cream helmets.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Shea.